Good evening and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines here in the south. Courage and hope. Why Alex says this will be the best Christmas ever against all the odds.
The number of rough sleepers in Brighton doubles. Now those who were homeless are helping them.
£60,000 and counting, how local people and celebrities are supporting a Southampton musician.
And a virtual world with a sprinkling of reality, how one charity is putting you at the heart of its fundraising. Good evening. It's been a long and painful journey and he's faced so many extraordinary challenges along the way. But this Christmas, Alex Lewis says his life is better than ever.
3 years ago, Alex lost both arms and legs to a deadly infection. Now, we followed his journey in a series of incredibly personal reports. He's still in constant pain and has the challenge of raising up to £3 million during his lifetime to pay for artificial limbs.
But this inspiring man says he's lucky to be alive, and in 2017 he's determined to walk again. Kerry Swain has been to meet him at his home in Hampshire.
So this is more for your core, but it also makes you work every muscle in your body, apparently.
Alex Lewis may have lost all 4 limbs, but none of his strength of character or sense of humour. You've turned a beer gut into a six-pack?
No, the beer guts, well, it's not beer really, it's more chocolate and white wine at the moment.
Alex was given only a 3% chance of survival after what he thought was a common cold and sore throat was diagnosed as strep A toxic shock syndrome, septicemia and necrotizing fasciitis. 3 years after having both arms and legs amputated, out on a specially adapted bike, he's not only alive, but really living.
You get down days, but we all get down days. You know, we're all humans after all. At no point do I think, oh God, that's enough's enough. Because everything is much easier than it was. You know, eating dinner 2.5 years ago was hellish, but I'm going to eat my dinner in a couple of hours' time as if it's just normal.
And watching you drag yourself literally into the gym, what gives you the discipline and the motive to get on and do that?
I'm not going to change being a quadruple amputee. This is me for the rest of my life now. And I fear that as I get older, to lose that fitness and not be able to play Lego on the floor or, you know, do things like that, it worries me massively. So that gives me the impetus to get in there and train as hard as I can.
But terrible pain means Alex is going back into hospital.
I suffer from a lot of nerve pain because I'm missing all 4 limbs and my nerves are still firing as if I've got hands, feet. It's constant and I've got no way of controlling it. I'm going to have my sciatic nerves cauterised, I think, in both of my legs.
A few weeks after the operation, I return. The surgery has not been entirely successful.
It hasn't worked as yet, but it could be next week, it could be 6 months down the line. So fingers crossed that we get there.
How disheartening is that you have to fight so hard every time?
Something like that is not a big thing to endure, really, in comparison to what we've gone through at the beginning.
Alex also had another operation on his lips, which have been reconstructed using flesh from his shoulder.
Next year is the start of the finishing process on my mouth. So we begin facial tattooing the middle of January, where they'll colour it up and then hopefully all my skin will merge into one and I'll have a kind of face back in a way.
So what everybody wants to know is, when will you be walking? When will you get these super legs?
I think realistically we're looking at the middle of next year at the moment. It's more to it than just, you know, you're not buying something off a shelf, so you have to order it. You've then got to purchase the ankle joint to work with the knee joint. You've then got to purchase the foot.
Those legs not available on the NHS will cost £250,000. Then Alex needs new arms. Fundraising for prosthetics will be a lifelong challenge.
Do you never get disheartened?
No, not now. Not now. I think I'm so lucky, so lucky with what I've got around me and who I've got and how everything's panned out, that I've got nothing to be disheartened about.
Alex is working again as an interior designer, looking forward, like the rest of us, to a peaceful Christmas at home with the people he loves. Kerry Swain, ITV News.
He is just incredible, a real inspiration. And for details about the Alex Lewis Trust, you can go to our website, the address itv.com/Meridian.
In other news, a murder investigation has now been launched in Bournemouth after a woman who was attacked earlier this month has died. Hayley Wall, who was 25, was found outside a supermarket in Charminster Road on December the 13th. She was taken to hospital with serious head injuries. Detectives would like to hear from any witnesses, especially 3 women who looked after her at the shop. A man's been charged and due to appear in court next month.
A man wearing a Santa hat has robbed a shop near Brighton at knife point. It happened at the Co-op in Saltdean on Tuesday night. He stole more than £2,000 from a safe. Police say it might be linked to a similar robbery in Brighton last week. The suspect is described as stocky and spoke with a northern accent.
People living with mental health problems on the Isle of Wight are at risk of harm. That's the view of the Care Quality Commission, which recently inspected the NHS services there. The regulator says patients are waiting too long to be assessed and treated and that immediate improvements are needed. The Trust must report back with their plans within the week.
Police have released pictures of a man they'd like to speak to about an alleged sex offence against a 16-year-old girl on the Isle of Wight. It happened on a bus travelling between Newport and Yarmouth at 5:30. The incident was back in October, but this is the first time pictures have been released.
A choir full of people who once slept on the streets put on a special Christmas performance in Brighton this week.
It comes as new figures show the city's homeless population has almost doubled in the past year.
Well, today the government announced a new £1.25 million grant to help tackle the homeless crisis in the city.
But campaigners say it's not nearly enough, as Andy Dickinson explains.
All of these singers rehearsing for a Christmas concert in Brighton used to sleep rough on the streets. Arthur Richford spent almost 2 years in the city, homeless and destitute.
We used to go to the Brighton Centre where we used to rifle the bins at night for food. However you found yourself on the street, maybe a family break-up, you lose your job, alcohol, drugs, trying to return back to society. Very few people know how hard and what a struggle it is.
This choir's performance comes with the news that Brighton and Hove's homeless population has almost doubled in the last year, with 144 recorded sleeping rough in a single night compared to 78 12 months before. The city now has more homeless per head than anywhere outside London, a state of emergency some have claimed. The government today promising more than £1 million to help.
There has been a rise in rough sleeping nationally and locally. We're in the middle of a housing crisis. There's a real pressure on our services, but it also has been a more accurate reflection. And that's really important because we need to know where the rough sleepers are, even tucked away in the most remote corners, because then we can start to work with them and get them into services.
The council says these are its most reliable figures ever and is advising residents to donate to homeless charities rather than the rough sleepers themselves. But campaigners say much more needs to be done.
Homelessness is a terrible thing, be it at Christmas or be it in midsummer. And in this rich city, in this rich country, surely we must do much, much better than that.
We have people who are still sleeping on the streets, through to people who actually were homeless quite a long time ago, but the impact it's had on their life has been really significant, and often getting the keys to a house isn't the end of somebody's homelessness journey, it's quite often just the start.
Arthur recently walked the length of Italy in a bid to raise money for his beloved choir, his efforts here endorsed by Roger Daltrey.
What hasn't he been through? There's not much in the world that Arthur hasn't, and he's a real survivor.
Arthur's been helped to turn his life around, but far too many, he says, are being left behind. Andy Dickinson, ITV News, Brighton.
A body found on a beach in Dorset has been identified as a missing pensioner. Albert Ault, who was 84, went missing from his home in Bournemouth on Sunday. His body was found on Boscombe Beach yesterday. His death is not being treated as suspicious.
12 anti-runway campaigners who disrupted passengers going to Heathrow last month have pleaded guilty to obstruction offences. At Magistrates' Court this afternoon, they said they were carrying out their right to a peaceful protest and were given conditional discharges. 3 other protesters pleaded not guilty and will be tried in the new year.
14 more drivers have been charged with drink or drug driving offences in Dorset this month. 30 people have already been charged during the annual Christmas crackdown.
Southern Rail was blasted last night for causing more travel chaos, this time for road users. One of its carriages being transported by road got stuck at a busy junction, causing delays.
You're watching ITV News Meridian. Thank you for choosing us. We do appreciate it. Coming up in the programme.
Find out why charity fundraisers are offering a new perspective on the far side of the world from your local high street.
Well, for more on all of our stories, head to itv.com/Meridian. Any views or any news, you can call us, the number 0808 1010 095, or you can get in touch via Facebook or send us a tweet at ITV Meridian.
A pop star and members of the public have been raising money to help a Southampton musician who's been diagnosed with cancer.
Yes, the lead singer of The Delays, Greg Gilbert, has stage 4 bowel and lung cancer. Surgery isn't an option, and genetic tests show that free NHS drugs wouldn't work for him.
Well, to pay for alternative treatments, a fundraising page has been set up. It's already hit £75,000 in just 4 days, including a donation from Ellie Goulding. Emma Wilkinson has been to meet him.
Greg Gilbert is trying to make things feel normal for his little girls, but they're far from it. He was recently diagnosed with stage 4 bowel cancer that has spread to his lungs, and there's little the NHS can do.
You find yourself saying, oh, well, how long have I got? You know, and then that's now like the defining moment in my life up to this point, apart from the birth of my kids. But at the same time, nothing has made me more keenly aware of living in the moment. In a weird way, you know, I'm more present than I might have ever have been.
To his family, Greg is a loving father and fiancé. To many others, he is the front man of Delays. Over 15 years, the band has built up a loyal following. Now, many of those touched by their music have thrown their support behind Greg. Genetic tests have shown that the only free immunotherapy drug available wouldn't work for him, and surgery isn't an option. So his family are trying to raise £100,000 for alternative new treatments not offered on the NHS.
The NHS has to make some difficult decisions about what treatments to provide, so the NHS will only recommend a treatment if there's good, robust clinical data that it is likely to benefit patients.
Greg's fiancée Stacey says the care they've received from the NHS has been fantastic, but for her, no price is too high.
That's probably the hardest part of this whole situation for me, is thinking about a number for Greg's life, because there isn't one. So I was willing to do anything to make sure that he could at least have a chance at this treatment.
A glimmer of light in this dark time has been the generosity of strangers. More than £75,000 has been raised in just 4 days.
Alongside of the darkest, sadness I've ever known, is this electricity.
I've never experienced so much sort of love, and my family and me, the gratitude, can't put it into words.
Emma Wilkinson, ITV News, Southampton.
We wish him all the best, of course. Well, a spot of sport for you now. Reading are through to the next round of the EFL Trophy after knocking out Southampton. Saints under-23s took the lead thanks to a great run and finish by Lloyd Isgrove, with the Reading youngsters equalising through Niall Keown, son, of course, of the former Arsenal defender Martin. That took it to penalties, with Southampton missing their first 2, including this one from Alfie Jones. And that left it to Reading's Yaku Maitai to win it for the Royals. Well, still a week or so to go, but already 2016 has been an extraordinary year. Brexit, Donald Trump, Syria, terrorism.
Well, tonight there's a special programme looking back at the year that we'll remember for a long time and that many of us would rather forget.
Well, Tom Bradby's been looking back. He's in our London newsroom. Tom, that was the year that was, and what a year. What was the standout event of 2016 for you?
Fred, it's so difficult to choose, isn't it? Because there have been so many extraordinary events. I think Brexit and Trump, really in their own way, are what we'll remember this year for. Brexit, a lot of people sort of did think that it might be coming over the hill, but when it did, that's such a potentially massive change to the status quo that shook us. And then, you know, we got this extraordinary business of this total maverick making it into the most powerful job in the world. And I think, to be honest with you, we're still wrestling with the consequences of that. Just to give you one example, if the president-elect, when he's president, continues to tweet at 2 in the morning, is that official government policy or not? We've never had government by Twitter before, and so there are literally thousands of questions like that we're busy trying to work out what they mean at the moment.
Let's talk a bit about Brexit. We saw you walking down some beautiful lanes in Sussex, in Rye. What did people there say to you about Brexit?
I think the most interesting thing, which I guess probably won't come as a surprise to you, because I know you've been doing your job a long time and you have a very good connection with the audience, but I think that feeling that they were just locked out of the metropolitan conversation. It had been dominated by this quite small metropolitan elite for a long time, and they weren't really listening to people. And I think a lot of that was what Brexit was about, the sense of, OK, well, you've asked us what we think. Well, we're going to quite honestly tell you, and we're a bit bored of listening to your rather narrow view of the world. That, I guess, was the single biggest takeaway from talking to people in places like that.
We had cities like Brighton and Oxford supporting Remain very solidly, but overall the Meridian region voted Leave. Why do you think?
I think because people had begun to feel that they were losing control of the country that they'd grown up in. You can't have a government saying that immigration is going to be tens of thousands and then year after year delivering hundreds of thousands without people starting to question that. I think that's the single biggest reason. And what's interesting is you've got a sort of mixture of what you might call traditional Labour voters and traditional, often quite well-to-do Tory voters, actually in an alliance, perhaps for the first time in modern British politics. But the similarity was a bit fed up of the metropolitan conversation, a bit excluded, and feeling honestly they'd slightly lost control of the country that they lived in. And control, that's the word that they kept coming back to. They wanted control back, and I think that's why they voted as they did.
Finally, Tom, after Trump and Brexit, let me push you for a major prediction briefly for 2017.
Well, I'll give you two very brief ones. One, that we're going to be wrestling with the consequences of those things. What are the Brexit negotiations going to be like? We might get some detail. What is Trump going to be like as president? Is he going to continue to behave as a maverick outsider when he's in the White House? And finally, let's look at Europe. Are those revolutions going to go to the next phase, in which case it might be the end of Europe as we know it?
Tom, good to talk. A happy Christmas and a peaceful New Year to you.
Happy Christmas to you.
And you can see ITV's Tonight programme this evening. It's called 2016, the year that changed the world. It's on at 7:30.
Now, charity fundraisers in the south could soon be using new technology to transport people to war-torn countries and scenes of natural disasters using virtual reality.
Yes, Oxfordshire's Oxfam charity is trialling headsets which help to immerse people in different settings, giving them a sense of what it's like in places like Iraq and Nepal.
And despite the cost of the new technology, the charity believes it's a worthwhile investment which will help boost donations, as Lauren Hall explains.
It's the season of goodwill, so as shoppers hit the high street, fundraisers are doing the same in search of charitable donations.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop these earphones on.
Oxfam's hoping to make an impact using new technology.
So this is the virtual reality headset. What you would do is you put it on the donor, you can see the glasses there, and then they've also got the headphones. There's music, there's talking, there's sound effects. It's really, really cool.
The technology allows people to see for themselves what the charity does and how it spends donations.
When we first came back, we worked all day, from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m, finding bricks.
That's pretty crazy. People are really kind of open to the immersive experience, and they just have a kind of new view on the world.
One of the virtual reality experiences is set in Bashir in Iraq, and it gives a sense of the sheer scale of devastation.
Well, I have to say, I really do feel like I'm standing in Iraq. The sights, the sounds, everywhere I look, there's something different. In fact, over here, there's some soldiers and I can see smoke off in the distance there. It really is quite incredible.
As impressive as it is, it does come at a price.
Is this the best use of money? So the public are always concerned that their money isn't going to people people who need it. At Oxfam, we spend only 8 pence in every pound that's raised on our fundraising activities, and everything else goes through to supporting the work and getting the results that we've seen in the video footage today.
The charity believes this is a worthwhile investment and will attract more donors. So far, trials are proving successful.
It was actually quite emotional, to be honest with you. I hadn't expected to feel quite so invested and involved in the story.
It really makes you feel like you're there, and it's really, really weird, but I think it's good. I think more people should do it because it gives you a true understanding of what they're actually going through over there.
You feel like you're just immersed in this little story and you're actually looking around.
You see so much on TV and in magazines, and it just made it so much more real.
Fundraising teams will soon be using these virtual reality headsets across the country, transporting people from the high street to scenes of conflict or natural disasters, offering a different perspective to what's going on in the world. Lauren Hall, ITV News.
Now here with some proper Christmas cheer is Simon.
Yes, what's going on in the world is there are lots of Christmas lights up. Mind, it is Christmas Eve
yes.
today. Is that right? Christmas
yes.
Eve. Well, anyway, whatever it is, there's not long to go until the big day.
No.
So we're still getting the pictures of the very fabulously lit up roads and houses. Some of them for charity. Here's the first one. Martin and Joe Funnell and the residents of Patterson Wilson Road collect for St Barnabas Hospice in Worthing. They have lots of visitors, including the West Sussex Fire and Rescue Service, who turn their blue lights on looking at an attempt to look festive. It kind of works, doesn't it? Matt Hall thinks these lights in Georgia Close in Andover in Hampshire are the best he's ever seen. There are rather a lot of them there, aren't there? And Barry, this is Barry Behan, thinks this is a lovely decorated house in Gordon Road in Waterlooville. There are also some landmarks that are looking a bit festive as well. Michael Seymour sent in this shot of the Spinnaker Tower, all lit up. Here is a lovely image of HMS Warrior looking equally as Christmassy from Lynn Derry. Nice to see they've pushed the boat out there. Oh, you see what I did there? But with that in mind, can't help thinking they've gone a bit over the top at Weymouth Harbour. Thanks to Deborah Baker for this photo of the very festive lights, all three of them. But probably not enough time now, I would have thought, to show many more. But thank you for all of the pictures that have been coming in of all of the lit up roads. Amazing what people are doing.
Snow?
No snow.
No snow. So what are we going to get? Let's find out. Simon Parkin.
From blizzards to pool, driving through Europe. Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Well, today was a very nice day, although it started off a little on the moody side. This was the murky start on the South Downs when Terry took this picture. But as I say, a very decent day. Tonight is a quiet one as well. Clear skies, chilly temperatures, but we'll see a bit of cloud pushing in from the west, a little bit of murk here and there. And we'll see that wind strengthening too. You might, if you're unlucky, catch an odd shower just sneaking in off the sea, clipping the south coast. But for most of us, dry start tomorrow. Temperatures down to 2 or 3 in some rural spots, so will be a bit cold. And if it's bright, it won't last very long because the cloud is going to thicken from the west. The winds will strengthen though. And by mid-afternoon, we're expecting gusts of between 40 and 50 miles an hour along the coast and around the Isle of Wight. Your temperatures tomorrow, though, very mild. 11 is 52 in Fahrenheit. Because of the strength of the wind, you probably won't notice. Now, that wind is even stronger elsewhere. Met Office weather warnings for the north and for the west of the country. It's parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, where they could see gusts of between 80 and 90 miles an hour tomorrow. So if you're travelling up north, do make sure you stay across the weather forecast. For us, though, we've got some rain to come through tomorrow evening. Some of it will be heavy, but it's pretty much cleared by around 9, 10 o'clock. And then the rest of the night is dry and clear, so it will make for a chilly start to Christmas Eve. As for your high tide times, Well, you can see in Poole around 20 past 8 in the morning, and around 5 to 3 in the afternoon. And then it's sort of good day, bad day. Tomorrow is a bad day. Better day for Christmas Eve, then Christmas Day itself is when we see this next weather front come in, although for us it just means there'll be a bit more cloud and quite a bit of breeze around too.
Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Now, it's our last full half-hour show tomorrow until after Christmas, so make sure you tune in.
Yes, do please, and find out how teenager Abby King is doing after having bariatric surgery on the NHS. It is a controversial treatment, not least on someone of Abby's very young age.
Well, we saw her undergo the operation, so 6 months on, how much weight has she lost? And more importantly, how will she cope with Christmas when she can only have the smallest of meals? That's tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. And in just a moment, the ITV Evening News continues with Mark Austin and Mary Nightingale.
Stacey has got our late news, so do try and make a date with her. But for now, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you very much indeed for watching. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Good night.